Good morning, everybody. No, hi, Leela. Leela is with me. We will have cat cam right when we get started. But good morning. I'm Environment Boy. This is my channel. We are starting a little bit late, but we're going to do some writing, as we usually do, to kick off the morning. I'm looking forward to a nice chill morning. It is still gloomy and rainy here. It has been like all week. That time of year. Sweet kitty's purring. She's so happy right now. But yeah, we're going to do some writing today. Gonna have us warm up like we usually do. And then after that, we're going to keep working on our templates. I'm hoping that I can finish updating all my templates today and have some stuff that I can use moving forward. So that's the hope. Yeah, that's the general plan today. So let's go ahead and get to it, especially since I'm starting a little late here. Just a little bit here. Put this right there. There she is. Look at that sweet little girl. Whoops. No, I'm going to knock over my camera, apparently. Why is this happening? Oh, it's because of the cord. There we go. Okay. She's very concerned. She's like, what are you doing? Are you so bad at this? Mila, I wonder that on a daily basis myself. Oh, goodness. Look at her. She's so sweet, though. She's such a sweet little girl. Alright, let's go ahead and get ourselves rolling here. We're going to warm up a bit with another one of our rune creation projects here. You know what I'm going to do here? I am going to do these slight changes that I've been meaning to make, but keep forgetting to make. About the layout and how I like to kind of have everything all set up here. Because I've been liking, thinking about templates and updating them and everything. I say every time that I want to make this change, and then I don't because I'm lazy and I'm working on something and I don't want to lose my place and all that kind of stuff. But you know what? Gosh darn it. I'm here now doing it. And you know what? Let's go ahead and do this. And let's start just being a bit more thorough with our labeling and everything. So, there we go. There's our template a little updated there. Copy that. Now, we just did, the last one we did was Find Familiar. That was a fun one yesterday. Now we're going to move on to Floating Disk. Excuse me. The Floating Disk. Yeah, is that what you think? I know. Go kitty. Tell me all about it. She has lots to say sometimes. And that's okay. I mean, it's all kind of the same whenever she talks, but you know. Oh, I know. What a sweet girl. A very sweet girl. Alright, so we need to go find Floating Disk. Go to our conjuration spells, because that's what we're working on here. We'll wait for that to load up, and then let's go to going to be first level conjurations. We'll filter that just a bit easier and quicker to find everything. Oh, she is a sweetheart, isn't she? Thank you, Rufu. I know she is very appreciative of the compliments, but also she knows, she's aware of how perfect she is. and she doesn't let me forget it, so. I know, little girl. She's all, now you've embarrassed her. She's all sheepish now. Alright, let's see her floating disc. Let's see. I need to be able to move my hand. I'm trying to type. She's like, no. I am head pressing, and that is that. Oh yeah, she can be very sassy, particularly when it's her perception of a mealtime. It doesn't actually have to be a mealtime. It's just when she wants it to be a mealtime, she gets very sassy about it. I know, you do. Don't act like that's not true. I know. So much to say. If you don't want me to say things like that, don't let them be true. I never lie about you. I just relate the things that you do. Such as, sometimes in the middle of the night, when I'm fast asleep and she decides she wants me awake, instead of doing like the sweet cute cat thing that some cats do where they'll like paw at your face or something, she tries to elevate herself. Like she'll get on the headboard, or if she can, if I'm like sleeping on the couch, she'll get on the back of the couch and she'll jump on my chest. That's a really good one. It's really fun when she misses the mark and lands right on my stomach too. That's a real fun one. I love waking up that way, don't I? I know. I know, you're a good kitty. I know. I know. I know. What a sweetie. Alright, anyway. I'm more distracted by my cat than anyone else in the world is. Like, you would think that the cat would be a distraction from the stream. It's not because she distracts the streamers, it's because she distracts me. I'm obsessed with this cat. I can't stop it. I can't turn it off. She's like, yeah, my 2 a.m. alarm clock. It's like, if she wakes me up in the middle of the night, I know I got a couple more hours to sleep before I have to be up. Alright, let's see here. So, okay, so we're gonna work on turning floating disc into a rune here. Let's do this. Spell creates a circular horizontal plane of force 3 feet in diameter, 1 inch thick, that floats 3 feet above the ground in an unoccupied space of your choice that you can see within range. The disc remains for the duration and can hold up to 500 pounds. If more weight is placed on it, the spell ends and everything on the disc falls to the ground. Oh boy, this is going to be a tough one to turn into a rune, just because the general function of it is it's like you're creating something. I mean, it's conjuration, so it's not really that big of a surprise. Not really that big of a surprise. I've been playing D&D for some time. I have. Let's see. I started getting into world building as a hobby in high school, which was like 15 years ago, and let the existential crisis begin today. We have one every day. It's no big deal. So yeah, I got into the hobby like 15 years ago. Started playing D&D. Well, it wasn't D&D. I started playing tabletop RPGs when I was in college, which was about, what? Oh, God damn, that's 12 years ago now. So 12 years ago now, I started playing that. I started with Call of Cthulhu, and then because of world building and everything like that, more people wanted to play D&D, and because I was world building, it wasn't that hard for me to switch over and learn how to do. Yeah, well, since Kitty is gonna go wandering now, we'll give us our Lego Kitty. We'll hang out with Savaki now, our Lego Tiger Kitty, but still cat cam kind of. There we go. But yeah, so then I started doing the DM thing, and so I've been DMing for, I don't know, probably somewhere around 8 to 10 years of my life. And so I have a fair bit of experience. I don't consider myself particularly exceptional at it. I just am a goofball who creates worlds and lets people run around and mess things up in them. Let's see here. I feel like turning this into a rune is going to be kind of almost like creating an item that, like, when thrown will turn into a disc or something like that. Like the disc will emanate from it. I almost feel like that's the way that this has to, this would work as like an enchanted item. Yeah, I think that's got to be the way to do it. Getting into it at the moment. It's an excellent hobby. It is absolutely an excellent hobby, and D&D is only the surface. Like, I do my writing for D&D because I end up DMing for D&D for the most part, because it's one of the most accessible ones. People who are experienced with tabletop RPGs will, you know, argue back and forth about how good of a game D&D is or how useful the rule sets are. and all that kind of stuff. But the reality is it's one of the most accessible because it's one of the most available games. There are so many resources, and many of them are available in the library and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, exactly. It can be entirely free. It's very accessible. You can find books at the library. You can find digital copies of books of the basic rules and all that kind of stuff. There are tons and tons of resources to be able to play D&D. And so it is one of the most accessible ones, and that's why I end up DMing for the most part, because I've got one group that we've been playing that I've been DMing for a while now, but it's the longest group that I've ever had, because most groups don't, for reasons that are usually related to life getting in the way. I find a game is really good if it can last a year. And so it can be a challenge, and so I end up DMing for a lot of new people all the time. So D&D just kind of ends up being the one. And if I ever get people, I'm hoping maybe this group that I'm part of right now will continue going, because we're all like fully fledged adults now in like stable lives. So it's like there aren't intended big changes for any of us. So we're hoping we can keep going. And I actually want to expand out and try some different games. But D&D is such a great starter, and it's just tabletop RPGs are a really fun hobby. I'm a huge fan of them. I might forget some. I have been a DM for 8 years, and I consistently forget rules. There are a lot of them. The only immutable rule for D&D is have fun with the people you play with. Which is why I always say try to play with friends. Don't try to go online and find people who are good at the game. Find people that you like playing with, and just play with friends. Because that is the best way to have a good experience, because then if someone forgets the rules or someone messes up, no one really cares, and it's not a big deal. Because there are a whole lot of rules, and many of them are vague, while other ones are surprisingly specific, and it's a very complicated game, and that's good. There's a reason for that, and that's what makes it fun, and that's what makes it the enjoyable experience that it is. But I don't want to. Yeah, that can happen a lot. I don't know. Keep searching. Keep asking people. That's like the only advice there is. I mean, you can go online and you can find groups, and sometimes that works out. But it's like, not every online group will be a nightmare situation, but anytime there's a nightmare situation, it's almost always with a group that people meet online. So, just be careful and be attentive about who you meet when you're trying to play. But you'll find a group. One of these days you will. The game is growing in popularity, so one of these days it'll happen. So, okay, let's hear. For this thing here, spell creates a circular or horizontal plane of force. I want to say, when thrown, the item. When thrown, the item creates a circular or horizontal plane of force, 3 feet in diameter and 1 inch thick, that floats 3 feet above the ground in an unoccupied space of your choice. And I'm not gonna space in an unoccupied space. We're gonna say that it is thrown to. The disc remains for the duration and can hold up to 500 pounds. If more weight is placed on it, the spell ends and everything on the disc falls to the ground. That's perfect. I think that's good. Only we're going to say, if more weight is placed on it, the item is deactivated and everything on the disc. If more weight is placed on it, the item is deactivated. Yeah, that's perfect. So, a character, then we'll try to find a game. Yeah, I mean, be careful of spending too much time creating a character, because if you're finding a game, they might have specific ideas in mind about the setting and the world. So don't spend too much time on it. Have some basic character ideas, and then talk with the DM and see what they have in mind. Because there can be a lot of different settings and a lot of different intended rule sets and stuff like that. So just keep that in mind. Don't get too attached to a character right away. Find a group, because a lot of times too they'll want to have like the whole group meet in what's called a session 0, where you're all going to discuss what your characters are going to be, so that way you can kind of build them together, so all your characters will have a reason to be together and all that kind of stuff. So don't spend too much time with it. I would say experiment with a bunch of different character builds, and just have some general ideas of things that you like, some general ideas of stuff that you'd like, and then find a group and then work on the character. And thank you for the follow, by the way. I appreciate that. I'm glad you're enjoying it. The world, this is my homebrew world. I'll pull up a map. I'll pull up a map to show it. I have my own homebrew world. No, not new. My bad. That's my bad. We'll pull up the world. We're gonna work more on the world itself later. Right now, I'm just doing a little bit of a warm up. A mental creative warm up that I like to do, which is working on creating a rune system. But this is my world. I've been working on this world for many years. Oops, my bad. Hold on. Too many tabs. Too many tabs. So there we go. Homebrew means homemade. But yeah, so this is my homemade homebrew world. And it's called Zaoria, and there's a whole lot of stuff, and I've been working on this world for many years now. I'm just constantly building more stuff in it. And right now, specifically, what I'm working on is a system that I'm developing for D&D that turns the spells in the spellbook into runes that can be attached to items. Just so that way magical items are more interesting than having a bit of advantage on hitting and stuff like that. The way that D&D is written, magical items are very rigid and very boring. So I'm working on this thing so that me and my players can have more chaos and more fun in our games. But yeah, so that's kind of what it is. And like I say, we'll go there. Yeah, kind of. I mean, yes, it is enchanted items. I use the word imbue because enchantment is a school of magic in D&D, and so it gets kind of confusing grammatically. But yeah, yep, you can enchant items and stuff like that, and the rules as written are kind of boring and bland with magical items, so I kind of create this. So it is much more fun and exciting, and my players have a lot of fun with it. So yeah, let's hear. The disc is immobile when you are within 20 feet of it. Let's see, while you're within 20 feet of it, if you move more than 20 feet away from it, the disc follows you so that it remains within 20 feet of you. So I'm just going to say, I'm going to get rid of that. We're making an item that's independent of the person. So it's just going to be the disc is immobile. And move, here's what we'll do. We'll say the disc is immobile unless the item is moved manually. It can move across uneven terrain, up or down stairs, slopes and the like, but it can't cross an elevation change of 10 feet or more. That's good. For example, the disc can't move across 10-foot deep pit, nor could it leave such a pit if it was created at the bottom. Okay, yep, that makes sense. You move more than 10 feet from the disc, or more than 100 feet from the disc, typically because it can't move around an obstacle to follow you, the spell ends. I'm going to just get rid of that. The item will just stay there. It'll just stay there if you abandon it. Because the way I always see it is, when you're casting a spell, like as a magic user or something along those lines, when you're casting a spell, you yourself are serving as the conduit for the magical energy. When you're enchanting an item, that means the item becomes the conduit, which makes it completely separate from the individual. That's kind of the point of it. So the magical item will continue to just do its thing, regardless of where you are in relation to it, because it's not bound to you like if you had cast a spell. So I'm going to say that it just continues to last until it's, until it's eliminated. So type of items it can enchant here, now that we kind of have an idea of what we're doing. Although I template here. It's imbue. Because, like I say, enchantment is its own separate school of magic, and so it gets confusing. Type of item it can imbue. Any item that can be thrown. Best put on an item that isn't used for anything else. So it's like you wouldn't want to put it on sword, because like you could throw your sword, but then you're without your sword. If you grab it, it deactivates. Is sort of the idea here. So an example item that I always like to do, I'm just going to go ahead and do this on step stool pebble. So it's like it's only a level 1 spell, so it'd be kind of a fairly common item. We'll say created by we'll say, here we go, originally created by a wizard for his wife, who was constantly asking him to reach the top shelf. It was quickly observed by the two that this could be a profitable item, and so was created and sold in bulk. Very popular among dwarves, halflings, and gnomes. Boom, there we go. There's our example item. It can be anything that the players are creative enough to come up with, but that's our sample item. I always like giving a sample item, and I don't know. I always try to like figure out, especially with the lower level ones, I like it to be sort of a common item, because low level spells are pretty not costly to enchant on something. So it's like a level 1 spell or a cantrip or something like that is going to be borderline household item, you know, like a step stool. So I think that's good. How it's cast: item is thrown or tossed. We'll say the acceleration. There's not two L's, is there? Acceleration towards the ground activates it. Is thrown or tossed to activate. Item is lifted from center of disk. Let's see, of disk to deactivate. Say gentle nudges will move it. So it's like you toss the item, activates, pluck it, pick it up. That'll deactivate it, and then you can still like push it around, but it's almost like pushing the disc more than anything. The range is going to be, the range is as far as you can throw. What was it, a 3-foot diameter? Yeah, 3-foot diameter disc. 3-foot diameter disc. Let's see here. For the duration, lasts until deactivated. Attack save is irrelevant. There is nothing there. It just appears. This isn't sort of attack or damaging thing. Embodiment type is really kind of irrelevant. One of these days I'll finally just remove it from the template. I don't even remember what I was originally thinking when I put that in there. Probably something along the lines of like, is it always passively activated, or do you have to like actively do it? But that's kind of covered in the how it's cast, or how it's triggered, or whatever you want to say for it. Just kind of already covered with everything else, so I'm not going to worry about it. So great, I like that. So now the fun part is we get to decide. So with the system, like I set it up like a crafting system, so that my players can, like, they find the rune, and then they can go through the process of slowly imbuing it on whatever item they want. Now, naturally, depending on how good or bad they are at these things, there's the chance that they'll accidentally goof up the recipe of sorts and accidentally grant the magical item sentience or make it a cursed item. Because what's D&D without a little chaos? And so now we get to figure out what happens with it. So, and the way I always do it, so like if it's sentient, I always it's always like a roll on the alignment charts to see if it's good, evil, lawful, or chaotic, or if it's any level of neutral as well. If it's neutral, then it just kind of like chats with you, and that's it. But I like to come up with these things, and the idea is that it'll do a little something extra if it has one of these traits there. If it's good, it does something a little extra beneficial for the owner. If it's evil, it'll do something a little extra mean to enemies of the owner. If it's lawful, it tends to be a bit more powerful, but a bit more narrow in its range. Whereas if it's chaotic, it tends to be a bit more broad in scope, but a little less powerful for it. So what I'm thinking for if it's good, is I'm thinking, I feel like it's almost like the item, I'm trying to think about how to like word it, because like my thought is that the item, so naturally the item doesn't move, but I'm thinking in this one the item maybe does have a little bit of capability to self move. So we'll say, and what I'm thinking is we'll say the item is the item is loyal to its owner and will, unless instructed otherwise attempt to follow the owner when it can. So it's like, unless it's instructed to hold still, it'll follow him. So it's like you could use it as a moving shelf or like a table that follows you around. It'd be super handy in a lab. So it'll just do that. It's like a I don't know, like a pup or something like that, or it just kind of wants to follow you around unless you tell it sit and stay. If it's evil, my thought is the item is a real prankster. A real prankster will deactivate if doing so will be damaging to an enemy. Will also try to move in the way into the way of enemies, causing 1d4 shin damage. So just like, it's like a coffee table that moves in the way, so you bang your shins on it, is what it'll try to do. I don't know mechanically how that'll work, but I like the idea with that, and we can just wing it. Well, it's like if a player does that, I'll just like wing it. Because if it's sentient, the idea is that I as DM am the one who controls that thing based on those, based on all of those traits and everything like that. So I can just be like, oh yeah, he's gonna try and the table's gonna try and move its way in there. So while they're moving, they get tripped or whatever. So I think that'd be kind of funny. If it's lawful, so my thought is, lawful. A stronger but smaller disc, we'll say 2 feet diameter, but can hold up to 700 pounds. So it can hold up to like another person essentially. And then if it's chaotic, I think it's going to be a wider but less powerful or less actually a wider but weaker, that's the word I'm looking for, a wider but weaker disc. We'll say that one's got a 5-foot diameter but can only hold up to 200 pounds. There we go. Perfect. Yeah. Yeah, yep, definitely. Chaotic tends to be wider. Like, it's really easy to figure out area effects because it tends to be a bit more, like, a bit bigger in its scope, but then do less damage and stuff like that. It gets tricky when you have, like, a pinpoint type of thing. A lot of times I'll add an area effect situation to a chaotic if it tends to be. So it's like something that would only target one person. It's like maybe there's, like, it'll induce some splash damage, but it does a little less damage to everyone. Stuff like that. But yeah, I like that. I think that works pretty well. I think my favorite part about this is that this one is probably going to have nothing to do with combat and is entirely just a roleplay out of combat related situation, which I have more fun with those things than combat. Combat, I mean, don't get me wrong, combat's a lot of fun, but combat tends to get predictable because everyone kind of has the same stuff. I mean, the dice adds a little bit of randomness to it, but people kind of end up like, they know their roles in combat, they do the same things, and that's a lot of the reason why I like to do these runes. So that combat can get a little bit more chaotic and interesting. But at any rate, now we get to decide what happens if it's cursed. This is going to be an interesting one if it's cursed because it's a pretty innocuous item. So, like, having it be a cursed item is strange. Because it's like, what the hell does, like, what would a cursed desk be like? Like, does it follow you around and hurt you? Does it hurt other people? This is a weird one to try and conceptualize. So I guess here's my thought. The created disc is sharp around the edges and can be used as a thrown weapon. Ranged weapon attack, 1d6 damage. So it's got sharp edges, so you can like throw it almost like a sharpened frisbee or something, like a blade that you're throwing. So that's the extra powerful benefit. But now we got to have a problematic side effect. Excuse me. Is it infected? Infected? I guess kind of. Cursed items tend to so a cursed item in game, the way they're written, are a little bit more obviously evil. But I like to make them more so just like, I don't know, like it's almost like the sentient items tend to be like good sentient. They want to help their owner, right? They want to be in league with it, whereas a cursed item is like sentient but really only looking out for its own best interests. So like I consider Lord of the Rings, the One Ring, to be a cursed item, right? Where it's like it will help you, but only insofar as helping you helps itself, right? So it's like it has the benefit of you put on the ring and you become invisible, but in doing so, it calls to its true owner and it wants to go back there to be as powerful as possible, right? So it's like that's kind of how I try to set up these cursed items, where it's like it is extra powerful, and it's a really unique item that one might be tempted to use, but there are risks involved using it, is kind of the way I like to do it. And then the other thing about a cursed item, and this is kind of much more rules as written, cursed items tend to really require a lot of work to remove them. Namely, you have to go to someone who can do like dispel magic or something like that. You can't just like, if you have a cursed pair of shoes, you just can't take them off usually. And so I usually include some sort of negative effect of, if you try to get rid of the item, what'll happen. So I think the problematic side effect for this one is the item doesn't discriminate between friend or foe, and it holds momentum, continuing to move, we'll say 15 feet past the target, and damaging anyone else it contacts. So you have to be like aware of people in the background. And so this is the type of situation where it's like, like my thought here is that someone can be convinced to think like, oh, I think there's no one behind them, I think I can safely do this, and they'll use it until that one situation where they like forget, or someone moves like they're not expecting and they throw the disc, and then someone else gets in the way and suddenly it starts hurting teammates or something like that. Sort of the idea there. How's it going, Gabby? Good to see you. I'm doing well, thank you for asking. Hopefully the same is true for you. And so now what it takes to remove must be removed magically. If the owner tries to abandon the item, it will self-activate and return to the owner, doing 1d6 damage in the process. So it'll return to you, like the item will return to you, but it'll do that damage of like the sharpened edges of the disc effect to you as it returns. So you can't just toss it and get rid of it, because then it'll come flying back at you, is sort of the idea. You know what I want to do actually for this? And it doesn't discriminate between friend or foe, and it holds momentum, continuing to move. Okay. I'm going to rephrase this. This is going to be a bit more complicated, but the item holds momentum, and continues to move half the distance past the target, as it takes to get to the target. So we'll say, example, target is 30 feet away, disc moves another 15 feet. So we'll do it like that. So that way it's like the further away it is, the further the thing is going to keep on going, and the harder it's going to be to control. So it's like if the enemy is within 10 feet, you know, it's like, oh, it's only going to move 5 feet. So as long as there's no one directly behind it, it's no big deal. But then the further away they are to throw it, the more energy it takes to throw the item, the harder or the further the thing will continue to go afterwards. I think that's good. I like that. I like that a lot. I think that adds a bit more of that chaos that I'm looking for here. If it isn't clear, I thrive on having my games be just like pure chaos and calamity and pandemonium and any other words for it. Always my favorite way to run a game. But yeah, I think that's good. I think that handles the rune there. The other thing about this always too is that like none of this is meant to be set in stone, because the way I see magic in my world is that magic is just sort of like an energy, kind of the same as like light or sound would be energies that can be perceived in different ways. You just need the right conduits, right? You know, with light we have our eyes, with sound we have our ears, right? So with magic you have a wizard or you have an item to be the conduit. The other thing about it always is that I see casting a spell as like cooking a dish, right? Following a recipe. Where it's like known spells are basically like, oh yes, we know that if you do this thing, you know, there's this recipe, you will get these results. There are consistent ways to get results. It's not that they're finite things, that's the only way to invoke magic. It's just those are known recipes. But just like with cooking, you can change the recipe and see what you get. Sometimes you're going to get a complete and utter mess that no one wants, right? Sometimes you'll end up with nothing at all, depending on how poorly you do. Or sometimes you can end up with like, you know, something that's got a little bit more spice than than the original recipe or anything like that. So, you know, all of these things are the way I like to run it, or at least I try to run it, is all of these things are modifiable by my players depending on what they do, what they choose to do, and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, I think that's good. I think that's as good as we're going to get. It's not the best one I've ever written, but I think it's as good as we're going to get, because I think floating disc in and of itself doesn't really lend itself well to an enchanted item, right? To a rune. Runes are things that like cause fire damage are much better, because then it's like, oh yeah, it just turns the sword into a fire sword or something along those lines. So I think those types of things tend to work a little bit better. But I think we found a good way to do this one. I like the idea of it being a thrown item that can turn into a disc when thrown. I think that works pretty well. So I'm content with that. So with that done, that's our warm-up here. So with that done, I'm going to bring us back to what we were working a bit on yesterday. And that was with me working on updating some of my templates that I use for when I'm like campaign writing and world building here. And as I was describing it yesterday, the thing that I've kind of felt lately is I've been feeling myself getting a little too wrapped up in the campaign building facet of things, and I've been kind of straying away from my sort of origins as a world builder. And you know, it happens, and it kind of happened out of necessity for this campaign, because we were halfway through a campaign I had already written, and then because our party composition had to change because some people had work schedule changes and stuff like that, my players wanted to just we brought in a new player to round out the team, and they wanted to start a new campaign rather than trying to like figure out where to go now that we were down, you know, one of the original players and stuff. It just didn't feel right to them. So we started a new campaign, and I had to just quickly start writing. So it's understandable that I've kind of drifted from my usual world building perspective on things. But now that I've got enough of a buffer, I've written enough ahead of where we are in the campaign, that I'm comfortable with slowing down and going back and maybe filling in some of the blanks that I've accidentally left in my world building and all that kind of stuff. So so one of the things that I want to do is modify. I make myself a lot of templates for when I'm world building and stuff, so that way I can always kind of keep track. There's two reasons. One is I can keep track of what all I need to put in there to have part of the world be completely well built. And let's see, what's this? I apologize, I gotta check this real quick here. The unfortunate truth is that streaming does not pay the bills for me. So I have my day job, and for the most part, my day job is on my own schedule. But if people need me, I need to be available. So I just got to check and see if this email is a critical one here. Okay, this one. Okay, yeah, it looks like I will have to respond to that, but not immediately. Not immediately. We're good to go. I gotta go. Yeah, it does unfortunately have to come first, but the good news is that one's not a critical thing. It's something that it's not going to be relevant until next week, so we're good to go. Just people informing me of stuff. But yeah, so at any rate, working on all of this, yeah, so I wanna try and get back to, like, I make these templates so that way I can, one, keep track of what I need to put in an area to make sure it's all fleshed out and I have all the details that I want to have. And they're not even necessarily details that are going to be important to the game. Because like I say, I consider myself a world builder first, and the concept of world building is I just enjoy creating worlds for the sake of creating worlds. It's not about, like some people get hung up on the fact like, oh, I don't want to write something and my players aren't going to end up encountering it. And that makes perfect sense. But for me, that doesn't bother me. I like building a world for the sake of building a world. I just have fun doing it. So these are sort of my ways of, the templates are my ways of making sure I'm putting in all the details that I like putting in. And the other thing that I like having the templates for is they're a very good way to help combat what I call analysis paralysis when you're trying to start writing, where it's like you have too many thoughts and ideas that all kind of are interwoven, so you don't know where to start. Like, so many people will talk about like, oh, I have all these ideas, but I don't know how to start writing them down. And I definitely know how that feels because I go through that often. I find that having templates in place is very good at handling that, because what I can do is I can just go to one of these blanks that needs to be filled in, right? One of the parts of the template. I can just kind of go in here and say like, okay, well, I know this part and that part of the template, so let's start filling those in. And then I can just kind of fill in the bits of the template as I need to, and then, clear those ones out. And then as I'm going, it gives me ideas. They're like built-in placeholders so that I know where I can get started. And you can just start on any of them, and I know that the placeholders are already in place to fill in the other details. I don't need to sit here and stress over, oh, what order should I write things and all that kind of stuff. It's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's all accounted for. I just have to fill in the blanks. So that's why I like to stick with these. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to kind of rebuild my templates around the basic concepts, the most fundamental writing concept of making sure you account for all of your who, what, where, when, why, and how. The how is, for world building, a little less important. And in fact, for D&D world building, it's really not anything at all, because your players and their actions will describe the how, right? How do things happen? How does the game get played? That's up to the players. They can go decide what they want to do. What I'm in charge of making is the who, what, where, when, why, and that's it, right? So who is available? Who is around for people to talk to? What is there to do? Where is there to go? When is a little more complicated, because it kind of tends to be like, if there are plot hooks, when do those get activated? And a lot of times that tends to be like, I'll kind of, the way I organize it is I think about presenting problems to my players, and usually the when is, okay, which problems do they have to have solved for this new problem to arise, right? And that's how you get your linear story, right? One problem gets solved, but either that causes another problem or it reveals another problem. And that's the situation. Like, that's how you stepwise have a story. That's the when. And then the why is just kind of like, why does this matter? What's important about this? Why do the players have motivation to do this? And in a D&D game, it's usually pretty easy, because it's because the why is like, if you don't do it, demons will take over the world or something like that. It's like, I mean, if you're going to put it that way, how am I going to deny this call to adventure? Know what I mean? So, yeah. So at any rate, that's kind of how I'm reorganizing these things. And I've got it organized on basic locational levels, right? So we have my world here, and when I'm building a campaign, I tend to have one campaign contained within one hex of location, right? So right now the campaign we're running takes place in this hex right here, and then once you have that, we can go let's see here, I want to open up. This is the current iteration of the region map. So this is like the more zoomed in map, excuse me, of that hex, right? So I try to think about it in those levels. Let's reopen our world map as well. Both of them open. That should do it for us. There we go. So, you know, we have our region, who, what, where, when, why, how, which is basically everything on this level, which kind of ends up being who are the major factions that are available, right? It'll be the people of the city of Rhodanos. It'll be like the Snoll army that our players are dealing with, and it'll also be the elementals, and there's also the undead lich goddess, whatever, that's kind of building up her army over here, right? So those are the who's, right? Just the territories at large. What, in terms of what is there to do, that's when, you know, we have our, if I go back to our territory template, right, the what is kind of like, one, outlining all of the basic story progression stuff that happens, like the basic outlines, the basic plot lines, which is just like at the surface level of like, okay, the Snolls want to appease the elementals, and so they are waging war against that, right? That's as detailed as we're getting with that one on this level, right? And then the minor plot lines, also side stories and stuff like that, as well as just when they're traveling around, what sort of random encounters might they encounter, right? That's the what is there to do. You know, so that covers our who, what, where is there to go. So that's where we kind of start just talking about the major cities, which in this situation we've got like Rhodanos, we've got the undead city, we've got the elemental area, and then we got the Snoll camps, right? So it's like those are just the basic wheres. When is when we start doing the detailed breakdown of like all the different steps for all the different storylines, so that I know kind of like, okay, what triggers what and how all that kind of stuff has to play out. And then the why is just like the basic motivations of everyone. The other facet of why is the world like this, right? And so it's like giving sort of a history of the world that sort of describes, kind of informs what things are going to look like, all that kind of stuff. So we do that at the broader territory scope, and then we kind of go here, you know, and then like a lot of that stuff is also related to here. This is still like the territory map, so we do all that. And then we go into our more detailed stuff, which is like major locations, so cities. You know, we come up with the who, what, where, when, why, how, which is all that stuff, but focused more so at the city level rather than at the territory level. And then the final detailed level is going to be like the specific location. So if there's an important location within the city, like a shop or a dungeon or something like that, then that has its own layer as well. That's kind of how I'm working on doing that. And I'm just working on filling out, kind of creating a template that's a bit more in line with that concept, so I can be a bit more complete and a bit more thorough in how I'm organizing all of these things. You know, and it's like I'm definitely adding work to my writing process, but you know, like I say, I do it because I enjoy doing it. So there's not really a reason to, you know, be worried about that, about it taking more work, because really all I'm doing is giving myself more of my own hobby to do, which is, hey, you know, great stuff. Great stuff. I love it. So we've worked on the why and how. Largely, as far as format of our template goes, it's going to be pretty similar to our territory. So we'll talk about the where next. Just kind of get rid of this. This is part of the old template, and I still have a copy of all of the old stuff. If I decide I don't like this new method here. But I can't know if I'm going to like it or not if I don't try it, right? Where are the important places within within the city, city slash location, right? Because really it's going to be cities, right? Those are the basic concepts here. And so the way I want to organize this is we're going to do another heading here, heading 4. I'm gonna make it red so that it's thematically and like it matches color wise. Say location name, right? And so it'll be like shop, dungeon, etc., right? Whatever's there. And so we'll say 1 to 2 paragraphs per location here. More detail goes into the specific location, to the specific shop slash dungeon slash location page, right? Because you can see with our outline over here, we're going to have an even further, an even deeper subset of stuff going on there. So I think that's good to go. Perfect. Yeah. And so now we'll just do our who, what, where, when, why, how. Let's see here. Okay, don't need to worry about that. Not even related to my division. Just a company-wise newsletter that I get like 5 of those a day, and it's like, is it really a newsletter? Like, isn't the point of a newsletter to consolidate all of the news into one email? So if I'm getting multiple newsletters, doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose? Well, whatever. I'm not in charge of that stuff. I'm just a lackey who does the grunt work. That's all that it is. So, okay, so with these things, I just like to kind of give some examples about what the who, what, where, when, why, how is all going to look like. Again, so that way I can kind of understand what I need to fill in without having to rethink about the organization every time I'm trying to write something new, right? And it's all about consistency, too, because if I'm consistently putting things in the same format, it gets a lot easier when I'm running a game to know where to look for what I need. So that way I can know, like, it becomes sort of a second nature to find it in the heat of DMing as I need it. Is world building hard? I mean, okay, I guess here's what I'll say. It is, but not in a way that requires a lot of training or education. I think what makes it hard is figuring out a satisfying way to present to build the world as you want, right? So it's like, so like me going through the templates, having figured this out, like I say, I've been doing world building as a hobby for 15 years, and here I am still having to think about what information I want to put and how I want to organize it. So I would say, yes, it's hard, but not in, like I say, not in a way that should be intimidating. Because the flip side of it is in a lot of ways, it's really easy. Because all you're doing is close your eyes, envision a world, and like envision a place. Like maybe you close your eyes and you think about like a church, right? Imagine what it looks like. Imagine what it, use your senses. Use your senses and your who, what, where, when, why, how, right? And then just write it down. And that's it. So it's like creating a location is easy. Finding a way to organize and put all of those locations in places so that they all kind of work together as single pieces of a larger puzzle, that's tricky. And there's no right answer to that one because it really just depends on what works for your brain and your organizational habits, right? So what I'm doing right now, my hope is always that it will inspire and give people ideas. It is 100% not my intention to say this is the right way to do it. Because there are so many different ways to do it. Some people will use decks of cards to randomize things, right? They'll come up with systems where they draw a card, and like if it's a heart, like heart means there's forest, and an ace means that it's like a really important one or something like that. They'll do stuff like that. People will do that to make a game out of it, and have fun with world building. So there's countless, as many world builders as there are that many ways to organize your world and to come up with ideas. So in that sense, it can be really hard to find your own rhythm. In terms of just the process of writing down ideas, it's as easy as thinking of an idea, because all you do is you just write that idea down. So yeah, I mean, I guess what I would say too that makes it hard is when you start trying to make that world building work as a game, like a module for D&D, that's tricky because you have to make sure you're presenting the proper information so that when you're running a game, you have all the information that you need. And you can answer questions your players have and present challenges for them to face and present the rewards that they get from that. So remembering all those detailed things can be tricky. So there are parts of it that are hard, but there are parts of it that are easy. And I guess like kind of what the upshot is it's not hard to get started. If you're interested in doing it, it is not hard to get started. All you got to do is you got to just like think about a cool location that you have in mind and then write it down. And then you're a world builder, right? You've done it. Yeah, that's all it takes. You know, the hard part is then like, okay, I've got this one piece of paper that has this one idea on it. Now I need to figure out how that fits in with all of my other ideas that I have and so on and so forth. So, yeah, I don't know. How's that for a non-answer? It is, but it isn't. I don't know. I think the most important thing is I think it's a lot of fun when you find a system that works for you. And that's a really important thing. There are a lot of things that are very easy that are fun, and a lot of things that are very hard that are fun, but they are all fun, and that's what matters. But yeah, so like talking about the who, what, where, when. Oh my goodness gracious. Let's see here. Okay, hold on. This is related to that stuff that's going on next week. One second. Let's see here. Let's see here. Okay. Alrighty. Yep, I can pull that in a minute here. All right. Yeah. So the who of this location, of any location, is going to be, who is in charge of the location. So that can be, examples can be, shopkeeper. We'll say ruler of the dungeon, etc. Right, just things like that. So basic ideas. So the who, what, as in what is there to do. So again, it's just going to be what is there to do. We'll say shopping, dungeon crawl, right? If they're doing that, puzzles, etc. And again, these are just like, this isn't building the mechanics of these things. This is just giving basic paragraphs of all of that stuff. Where say does the, so it'll just be does the location have sub-locations? So it'll be, so it's gonna be like hidden rooms, secondary sites, multiple buildings working together, right? So it's like if the important part, so like one of the locations that I might put into a city might be something like, okay, this is the market district, and I might do that rather than doing a separate shop for each individual one, and say this is the market district. And it's like, so the who in that situation would be like, you list the shopkeepers that are available in the market district, right? Like as if it were like a little Galleria mall or something, right? You put in little stuff like that, and all that type of stuff. The what is and what is there to do. If it were that situation, I would say like multiple shops. You can do all kinds of shopping. The where is then going to be like mini shops or stalls that are all present there. You just kind of put all that stuff. When, and so this one's going to be, is availability dependent on stuff. So it's like shops always available. One dungeon. Oh my goodness gracious. There we go. One dungeon available only after a door is open, you know, etc. Those are just kind of some examples and stuff like that. And then why is just going to be, why is this location here, and why do people care, right? So it's like, why is the shop there? I don't know, because it was opened up. I'm not even going to put examples for that one. Just pretty self-explanatory. Like, why is this shop here? I don't know, someone opened up a shop there. It's great. Why do people care? Go there to buy things. Whereas, like, maybe the dungeon, it might be, why is there this dungeon here? It's like, okay, well, there was, you know, way back in history that was meant to be an escape route for the king out of the city or something like that. But it was closed up and forgotten, right? And so why do people care? Well, now it can be a secret tunnel for, you know, it can be a way to move around unseen for those who know about it. You they can remain unseen by the people who don't know about it, so on and so forth. So I think that's good like that. So I think that handles all the wheres for, excuse me, for the like specific location, right? So like the city template or something like that. And you know what I want to do? Location. I'm just going to, for clarity, do like city, city / encampment. Well, actually, you know what? We're just gonna say city / hub, right? Is what I guess is what it's gonna be, because it's like, is it an enemy encampment? You know, because like the idea is that there might be a dungeon that players need to go to, right? There might be like a prison that they need to go and do a prison break in. And that would be in the dungeon template, and the location would be like the prison district at large, or the city at large, or whatever it is. You know, it's like maybe they need to go to an ancient abandoned mine because it's rumored there's a monster in there that they need to hunt. Okay, so it's like going to the mine, that's the dungeon. In the mine is the dungeon. The area surrounding the mine that might have like an old abandoned mining village or something like that, that'll be the location. And the idea is to make sure we're fleshing out the world and providing proper details for things, because like, okay, yeah, there's an abandoned mine, but if we don't establish why that mine was there, what else is around that mine, then it's just some weird random cave. And you know, why is that relevant to the world? Why do we care about that? Whereas if it's a mine, it's like, okay, well, we've got an abandoned mining town that maybe has other things of interest there, and it can kind of expand our world, make it broader, make it more interesting, more alive, even if it's, you know, a dead city or whatever. But that's the idea here. So yeah, I want to set it up that way. That works. Yeah, so then the next one, so we got the where, so the who, that's a good one as well. We can do that next here, so we'll say here, copy that, paste it, change that to who. We'll say who is / are the important person / people of this location. Yeah, so I think that's gonna be, yeah, so that one's gonna be real simple. What we're gonna do for this one we can kind of abandon the what, where, when, why, how concept just a little bit, and we can say person name / title, and then we can just kind of give some basic give basic biographies. What did we put down? Let me just see and make sure. I guess I did kind of do who, what, where, when, but that's for factions. For individuals, it's going to be a little different. Give basic biographies. Let's do give basic biographies about a paragraph long. We'll say more detailed descriptions belong in foes and friends tab, and that's what this thing over here is. So I have a separate tab. A lot of stuff, a lot of like the lore and the history of things belongs in other tabs. This tab that we're working on right here is like pretty much, I call it the Atlas, but that's basically our campaign tab, right? So it's like anything that you need in a campaign module goes in here, and then more detail goes in sort of these lore tomes, right? So like when we were working on that rune, that goes in the magic tome. You know, if I'm making magical items, you know, so I have in that magic tome, I have kind of example items. If they're items that are going to be like more legendary, more important, then they go in the artifacts tome. And the idea is that this is a way to put items, to kind of add detailed items that aren't, like add levels of detail that aren't immediately relevant to the Atlas, and or items that are going to be important to more than one place, one part of the Atlas, right? So a person, though they might come up in this area, the fact is, if they're an important person, they're probably going to be relevant to larger areas than just one page. You know, it's like if it can fit, if it's information that fits in one page here, just one singular page, it can kind of go in here. But if it starts belonging to even more than one page within, you know, a single hex in my world or something like that, starts going in this page, because it's going to be, I'm going to want one centralized reference. And the other thing that's nice about this too is, as my players do things, I can keep the world living and accurate, because then I can update that page. And so what a lot of times we'll do here is the person name title, and we're also going to say link to foes and friends page, right? Because one of the things that's beautiful about this is I could take any page, right? I can take this page and I can copy a link to page, so I can link pages within other pages. So if I do that, then it's like, okay, if I need more detailed information, I can go there and look for that. But in this situation, it's like, give basic biographies about paragraph long, more detailed descriptions belong in foes and friends tab. So we'll go ahead and do this one. Appearance. So appearance, what they do in the location, they do in the location, what are their motives, and then what do players, or we'll rather say, what, how do I want to phrase this? What, we'll say possible player interact. Right, so it's like we can kind of describe, are they friendly, are they combative, all that kind of stuff. Needs to be a question mark. We can just add stuff like that, and it's just basic information. Yeah, it is definitely, I really like using OneNote. There are a lot of different tools that can be used for organizing a world and doing world building. OneNote is my personal favorite, but there's a lot of different ones that'll all have different things that are good and bad about them. OneNote does have some drawbacks, but I'm a big fan of OneNote. It's worked very well for me for many years now, so I'm a big fan of it. Plus, I get to make all of the tabs colorful, so I have this nice little colorful color spectrum going on here, and it's lovely, and I enjoy it. You know, I mean, what else do you need? What else could I possibly need in life? Am I right? All right. Anyways, possible player interaction. I think that's good right there. Yeah, that's all we need there. What was our next one after the who is what? What is there to do? We'll say what basic descriptions of what there is to do here. So basically what we're going to do is, so what I want to do is I kind of want to say, so we have major plot lines, minor plot lines, and then random travel events. So what I want to do here is do something similar. We're going to do heading here, major, no, dang you, make it red. I have to do it in the right order. Major plot points, just say, describe any major plot points that are going to happen in this location. And we'll say refer to the chapters that they take place in. So I organize my campaigns into chapters, which just makes it a little bit easier to kind of keep track of, okay, what level should my players be for this level of challenge, what things chronologically are going to happen, so that we can continue to up the ante on the story and all that kind of stuff. So because what we have in here, so again with the who, what, where, when, why, how, and actually, you know what, I kind of like that idea. And actually, you know what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna copy and paste all of this stuff here. The random travel events is going to be a little different. I have something different that I want to put for that stuff. I'm actually going to copy and paste this, 'cause I feel like this is kind of, it was on the nose. I was pretty happy about that, and so we'll take that and we'll just massage it so that it can be for a location rather than the territory at large. Just within this hub, things that could be matters of life and death will give players a clear target to think about no matter what they choose to deal with in those situations. Who is the source of this threat? What will be the result if the danger is ignored? Where does the main location? Let's see. Well, let's see here. What will be the result if this danger is ignored? Yeah, that's an important thing. where are the main locations relevant to this threat. So this one we can kind of change a little bit, and we can say almost don't know where. We'll just say yeah, we'll just say where within the let's see, we'll say where within the hub does this threat occur. And what I'm going to do is, for parentheses, we'll say refer to locations, refer to the wheres above, right? Because we've already kind of outlined all the important places. So it's like, if there's an important plot point, it better have a location here. It better have its own location there. It, like, no doubt it better have all of that. So in this one, again, we're going to say who is the source of this threat. We're going to say refer to the who's above. I think it's funny to me that, I guess it's not funny, like where's isn't an actual word. No wonder it's going to be underlined. Because really the proper word would be refer to the locations above, but we're like referring to a title, and that's why we put the quotations. I mean, I guess like grammatically, I feel like maybe even it might technically be more proper to do it that way, because the where's in. But that's, I don't know, that looks weird, and it's also grammatically or spelling wise incorrect. So I don't know. This is me overthinking things. When does this threat become relevant? From the get-go, do enemies gain more strength to this threat? So actually what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to say refer to chapters in previous section when this should be active from. Right, so it's like, because in our territory template here, all of this stuff for our when, we have all these chapters. So it's like, all of these things, like, we should be referring to those in here, right? Things should largely refer to themselves, which adds redundancy, which is a little unnecessary in some ways, but in a lot of other ways, doing that, like I say, doing that really, it does a couple things. One, it'll just sort of reinforce memory, and it'll help make sure that things are consistent as you're going. And two, when you're DMing and everything is chaotic and you need to respond to player questions, the more redundancy you have, the easier it's going to be to accidentally find what you're looking for at a given time, because you have like 7 different places you can look or anything like that. So that's good. And then why? What is the history or motivation of the people causing the threat? Yeah, I think that still is there. I think that still stays the same. So we can kind of do that. And then for the minor plot points, we're just going to copy and save or paste those there. So it's all going to be the same. Gotta format it, because if I don't, gosh dang it, nope. Okay. Tab. There we go. Because if I don't format it right, it'll bother me. Take notes then. You know what? Lots of notes is a very, very valuable skill to be able to do. In many facets of life, truthfully. Taking notes is underrated. And I know that because I am someone who inherently will often not take notes and then wish I did take notes. It was true all through grad school, and it remains true every time I play D&D. When I don't take notes, I regret not taking notes. Stop showing me the weather. I don't want to see the weather. So we've got those things. So major plot lines, minor plot lines, and then we'll say, for this one, we'll say, anything else? I kind of want to, for this one, yeah, because we've got all the locations. Anything else? I think what I want to do is, I almost for this one want to say list. We'll say make a bulleted list of all the locations above, and then make sublists of sublists of what can be done there. May be redundancy with the plot lines above, but that's okay. Boom, there we go. Excuse me. Gabby, we're continuing to work on sort of modifying the templates that I use, like we were working on yesterday, just kind of doing more of that work today. And then if we finish that, working more on our campaign. But for right now, that's kind of what we're working on here. So that, and then the only other thing that remains now is the when. And then I think what we can do for that one, again, it's going to be kind of like this, right? So we're going to do when. We'll just copy and paste that. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to copy and paste this whole section, and we can massage it as needed. Paste that. Oh no, I didn't get the thing. Oh no. Copy. Paste. There we go. Perfect. I say it needs to have all the proper, same uniform, consistent formatting. Otherwise, I'm just not going to be okay. I know who I am. And it's easier to work with it. So yeah, so this is our chapter outline of what happens and when different things are triggered. We'll say within this location. Try to include all relevant points regarding major plots, minor plots, and even just changes in any of the relevant who's, what's, where's, when's, what, and why's. Also include justification on why these things happen, and include notes about if any of them can be triggered earlier or later. Add the major plot points that are relevant to this chapter, where that each chapter corresponds to the player level of the same number, right? So it's like major plot point, next problem. So like this point, I think all of these things can stay. It's just that in this one, we're basically doing all of the chapters, chapter 1 through whatever the intended end of the campaign is. Whereas for this one, it's going to be like, we might not, for this location, we might not have anything until chapter 8, right? Because it's the first time that it's relevant. We'll say first time, this is relevant, so on and so forth. And all that kind of stuff. And this is when it can get a little complicated too, because subplots and stuff, depending on the order that players do things, they might be at chapter 8, but not have done the prereqs for some of these plot points, right? So that's where this is important, because it can say the next problem is this, and we can put a caveat and say like first available when players, at chapter 8. So first available when players are level 8, but also requires that they have done these other things, right? So this one, there's a beginning condition that starts the problem. So that's like, that's the list all the things. So this will be where it's like, okay, must be level 8, must have completed level 7 of this plot line, blah, 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 so on and so forth. And it just kind of makes it easier to like allow sandboxing without putting them in danger, right? Because the idea here is that, like, if something can't be triggered until the previous step is done, then we guarantee that they will always be at least at the right level. Because even if something doesn't start until level 5, right? If that's first available at level 5, but they're not available there, they have to reach level 5 to unlock that thing. So they're not going to accidentally wander somewhere where that's too difficult. Like, they could, in theory, wander somewhere, but there won't be anything to do there. There won't be any reason to go there, that kind of stuff. So that's kind of, it kind of works out that way to help make sure they don't get themselves in too deep, because players do that often. Players, because the thing is I've noticed, and maybe this is just a group by group thing, but I've noticed at least my players, they really like to get themselves they like to well, okay, here's the better way to phrase it. They don't like to admit defeat and run away. So if they are presented with a challenge, they will sit there and they will oftentimes try to fight until it's like way too late for them to try and run away. Like when they have 2 people unconscious and 2 people with single-digit health left, they're like, oh, we should run away. It's like, how are you going to do that? How are you going to do that? You're going to need to make your disengages, and half of your people are unconscious right now. How are you going to do that? And it's like, it's like if they would remember that running away is an option sooner, then they would be fine, but they never do. They never do. So it's best to just avoid putting them in situations where they're going to be in over their head. And sort of organizing it by these chapters I found is a good way to do it. Because it's like they can still choose to pursue, because like the flip side of it is they might choose to pursue just one plot line, earlier. But as long as like achieving that thing gets them up to the level that they need to be at, right, for anything else, then if they go back and do other stuff, all they're doing is going back to places where it's easier, not where it's more difficult, if that makes any sense. So that's just kind of the situation here. But yeah, at any rate, I think that's good for the location. So like the only last things to do are basically shop and dungeon templates, because basically the way the hierarchy goes and the way the flow of a game is going to go, right, they're going to largely be spending their time, at the territory level. They're going to largely be spending their time planning where they want to go at this level. They're going to think, oh, I want to go to this location, that location, that location. Then they'll decide a location, and they'll go to a specific location. So, say they're going to go to the old quarry there, right? So they're going to go to that location, and that's going to end up with, like, one of the city maps or something. It's like, or they might go to, like, Rodanos here, and then we go to the city map, right? And that's when they end up here. And then when they're here, they can oftentimes decide, there might be stuff that they can do at that overmap, or they can decide to go to a more specific location. And at that point in time, pretty much the only two locations that are going to need separate pages at that point are shops, places where they can go buy things, or dungeons where they're going to go and find danger. The only other option is if they're just going to like a neutral place where they need to go talk to someone to get some information or something like that. And when you do that, honestly, you can almost just leave it at this level right here, and you just, put in the information they need right there. If you feel it needs a new location, you can just do like a location template. And I might even still do a template right there, but it's really just going to be some basics like, why are you here? What information it can be gained and all that kind of stuff. So now we can just do these templates, and these ones might not need as much changing, honestly, because these ones are going to be much less concerned with the who, what, where, when, why, how, and much more concerned about just like the gameplay mechanics of things. Right, because the idea is when it comes to world building, you don't need much more beyond this because you've already added the information. Here is where we start getting into game mechanic-y type stuff. So we don't need a whole lot, but I still like having these things so we have plenty of detail for our players and all that kind of stuff. So let's see here. So what I want to do, how do we have this? Okay, so for the shop template, we've got some things. There's some things that I'm going to save, at least as far as the mechanics go, like the inventories and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I have to run to the bathroom. So I'm going to just quickly throw an ad break at us so that way we can hopefully only have like one, maybe two for the rest of this writing stream. So I'm going to throw an ad break. I'm going to run to the bathroom, and then when I come back, we'll start working on these templates and all that kind of stuff. So sit tight. I appreciate your patience, and I'll see you guys in just a hot second.
Something big is coming to McDonald's. Something of such enormous proportions. It could only be called the Jurassic Park Extra Value Meal. Okay, let's eat! An enormously juicy triple cheeseburger with fries and a medium drink in one of 6 free Jurassic Park collector cups. The Jurassic Park Extra Value Meal. A dino-sized value for a dino-sized appetite. Hey, where's mine? What you want is what you get at McDonald's today. All right. Take.
Hello, boys and girls. This is your old pal, Stinky Whizzleteats. This is a song about a whale. No! This is a song about being happy. That's right. It's the Happy, Happy, Joy, Joy song. Happy, happy, joy, joy, happy, happy, joy, joy. Happy, happy, joy, joy, happy, happy, joy, joy. Happy, happy, joy, joy, happy, happy, joy, joy. Happy, happy, joy, joy, joy. I don't think you're happy enough. That's right. I'll teach you to be happy. I'll teach your grandmother to suck eggs. Now, boys and girls, let's try it again. Happy, happy, joy, joy. 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 If you ain't the granddaddy of all liars, the little critters of nature, they don't know that they're ugly. That's very funny. A fly marrying a bumblebee. I told you I'd shoot, but you didn't believe me. Why didn't you believe me? Happy, happy, joy, joy, happy, happy, joy, joy, happy, happy, joy, joy, happy, happy, joy, happy, happy, joy, joy, happy, happy, joy, joy, happy, 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 joy, joy, joy.
What makes you sweat? Is it passion? Or could it just be heat? What about not knowing if your very next breath will be your last? What about all three? Tomb Raider from Eidos Interactive.
Classic Tomb Raider. Good stuff. Anyways. Thank you for your patience. I appreciate that. My bladder appreciates it as well. Alrighty, let's see here. So yes, so working on our shop templates and all that kind of stuff. So let's see here. So I want to talk about our, I don't know, I think I do still kind of want to keep track of our who, what, where, when, why, how. Just because that's such a, that's like the best way to make sure we're covering all the bases, right? I think the only other thing that I want to include for a lot of these, I think what I want to do here is, I want to add one more section to all of these. This is the one thing that I think I'm missing. Copy that. Go down here. We'll paste that. That's fine, right? One other thing that I want to add instead of the why how, we're going to call this one the description. Describe the look of this territory. So at this level, it'll be, this will be broad descriptions of what the climate slash environment is like here. Is like here. Is it cold or hot? Are there plants or rocks? Are there bodies of water? Give a couple of paragraphs to describe the to describe what one might see, what one might, we'll say, might experience during a long drive through the area. Right, so it's like we're not going giving details about specific locations or anything like that. We're just saying, like, you know, it's a, you know, it's a tropical rainforest with blah 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 and so on and so forth, right? Kind of like giving the tourism sales pitch of the place. Like, you know, it's like, why would you visit this place? What's nice about this place? And I think I want to say, remember the senses, right? So we've got the, I mean, not all the senses are going to be relevant here, but we have sight, sound, what are the five? It's like hearing, tasting, seeing, feeling, and smelling, right? So sight, sound, smell are important here. Touching, not as important, right? Because that's a pretty specific thing, and it's like, you know, it's like, well, what part of the territory you're touching? Are you touching the grass, or are you touching a building? That was not going to be there. In taste, it's like, what are you gonna, what is, you know, the country of Sweden taste like? Like, that's not an, you know, what does Africa taste like? That doesn't make any sense. So, but the smell, sound, sight, those ones are all a bit more relevant, right? When you're walking through a location, what does it smell like? So smell is not going to be as relevant, right? But what do you see and what do you hear? You know, you can hear the sounds of birds, or you hear the sounds of rattlesnakes or whatever as you're walking through. You know, can kind of immediately paint a picture of like, are we talking about a place with trees that will have birds? Talking about a desert that'll have the snakes, so on and so forth. So adding that type of stuff there is a good idea to make sure we're adding descriptions and stuff. And I want to do the same for here. Let's just save ourselves a couple here. Reinvent the wheel here. We've already got a bit figured out. That description. Describe the atmosphere of the... You know what? I'm just going to change this. Every time I see location, it gets a little confusing because like so we're just going to change this to city template, but we'll also say like hub. So it's like, it doesn't have to be a city, right? Just like the overall hub that might have locations that are important there. So there we go. Okay, that's better. I don't know. It was bugging me. So describe the atmosphere of the city. Is it a populated city or a ghost town? Is it something other than a city? What is the energy like? The energy like? Are there landmarks that are we'll say exceptionally noticeable from anywhere in the city? All that kind of stuff. Paint a picture of what it's like to first enter the city. I mean, just kind of do it like that. That's as simple as it needs to be. Then with the shop, we're gonna do the same thing, and I'm gonna just go ahead and we're gonna go all in. We're gonna experiment with how we would do like a who, what, where, when, why, how approach to everything here. I think get rid of that one and this one, because I think, you know, we have a not using that approach template already made, as we can see here, and I've still got that saved up there. So it's like there's no sense in being, you know, afraid of changing things up, because if I don't like it, then we just don't use it. It's no big deal. So for this one, first we're going to do description. Boy, oh boy, description. Clear all that stuff out. Describe the atmosphere of the shop. Remember the senses. Describe what it's like when you first walk into the store. Boom, you can do that. Is it a big box department store? Is it small? Yeah, it's like it's the D&D Walmart. The Walmart, or as what is it? In the Adventure Zone, they have their fantasy Costco, like. Oh, a nice big department store. Yeah, so just add a description there. That's good to go. The inventory, we're gonna keep this, because this is going to be the what, as in what is there to do here, which is shopping. What slash inventory. We'll just do that. And this part I think will stay largely untouched, because I still use this format regularly, and it's very handy for shopping to have this all good to go. Paper Knave, I did not make this. I downloaded this, the template, and honestly, I don't remember where I got it from, because I got it years ago. I found it years ago, but someone had a whole collection of a whole lot of them. I think, do I still have? Maybe it's in settings. Let's see here. No, the way to translate Reliance page colors. No, it's not page color. Insert. Maybe it was insert. I don't even remember how I got it. It's just this notebook has been the one that I've been using for so long. But yeah, definitely do the Googling. Because yeah, there are a lot of, because that's the other thing. There are a lot of different templates that you can find, and some people have made some really, really cool ones. And if I'm remembering properly, this one, I like using this one because I like the red theme, but they had them in a bunch of different colors that match like all the different modules that have been made and everything. I wonder if it was like new page. I wonder if we can like see, because now I'm curious, like, where do I have it? How do I find this stuff? There's a default template. The way to like add stuff from a template or something along those lines. At any rate, yeah. Do some Googling. There's some really cool ones, and I'm sure there's even more cool ones since the last time I bothered with it. So many cool things. Sounds good, Rofu. Good to see you. Glad you were having a good time hanging out. Hopefully we'll see you again. But yeah, I don't. Golly, see now I feel bad. Like I always feel bad because I can't credit where I got it from, but it's years ago, long before I started streaming, and it's just like. It's what I use. It's what I have. Applications, or full screen mode, settings. There's a way to install or like insert a template. Is like the trick that you have to do. Print out file. Maybe it's like a file. And if you find like the template or something like that, I don't remember how it is. Or maybe you have to do it from here. Section color, password protection. Move copy, rename, copy link to section. Yeah, there's a way to do it. There are ways to do it. And yeah, like it's I don't know, they're really cool, but they're not mine. I can't take credit for them. And I wish I could offer credit where it's due. But yeah, it's good stuff. It's good stuff for sure. Okay, so let's see here. So working on our template, our shop template here. Copy that and just paste that down there because then we're going to this. So the first one that I actually want to do here, so I want to change up the order a little bit. Like I've been sort of following certain orders based on just sort of what makes sense to have information there. But I want to change this up for the shop a little bit because we're going from just like pure raw information to more practical game mechanic type stuff here. So that's going to be a slightly different system here. So first I want to go with the hold on. Paste that so then we have a right format. So we're working on the who's, right? So the who of it. So who is the shop owner here? And so now here's where we can give like some basic descriptions, right? Basic description, descriptions, appearance, personality, any more details belong in foes and friends section. We'll say link to the page, right? Because we can do links within OneNote, so we'll do the link. So we basically just need to do that. We're just talking about the who. So the what, that's the inventory. That's all just sort of your basic and stuff right there. And we can actually leave that exactly where it is. I think we can kind of go with the who, what, where, when, why, how organization. We don't need to worry about link index here. It's not really relevant because we're changing that to this is like the final stop. This is the most detailed that it's going to get unless we're going to a completely different page. So this is indeed the format that I follow, and I'm pretty adamant about doing it for everything that I write. This is the result of 15 years of world building and experimenting and finding stuff. So you can absolutely get yourself up there to this level of insanity that I have achieved. It just takes a lot of practice. Feel free to steal any ideas you see me using. 100% steal any ideas. I would love to know that my thoughts and approaches to things are being used by other people. I find that to be a great honor, and it can save some, maybe shave some of those 15 years off of your timeline to get to that point. But the flip side of it is, too, change them in any way that you need to, because this is all what works for me and my brain, and it may or may not work to different degrees for different people. So, you know, use what works, ditch what's left. You know, it's like, don't say it out loud because I'll feel bad, but you can just tell me to fuck off if the stuff that I'm doing isn't gonna work for you. You know, like I say, don't say it out loud. It'll make me sad, and I don't want to be sad. But, you know, just internally, you can say it to yourself. But yeah, it's taken a lot of work for me to get here, and it's all kind of the result of me knowing what pages I'm satisfied with and what information is included in those, and what pages I'm dissatisfied with. And that's why I'm going through and editing and modifying all my templates, because I have been using the older templates for a long time, but I've been finding myself kind of dissatisfied with those lately. So it's like, all right, time for me to modify this a little bit. My writing style is changing a little bit over time, which is a super normal thing that happens to most people at some point in time. Your styles and your approaches change, and so it's like, okay, my approach has changed enough that I need to modify this so it's more satisfying. And really the thing is I've been noticing I want more detail. I get a little lazy with some of my details sometimes, and then when I'm running a game or when I'm just trying to conceptually think about things, I don't have the information that I wish I had. So, you know, here we are. So we've got the who, what, the where. I don't think there's a whole lot to worry about here. This one is just going to be basically include a map to outline the store layout. If you want, actually, you know, let's just go ahead and, like, let's just assume that I'm going to be staunchly perfect in everything. And the perfect one will also be label aisles as necessary and include any important secrets that might be relevant, such as alternative ways in/out for thieving. There's thieving or hidden items. Actually, you know what we'll say? Hidden items or secrets that the shopkeeper secrets that the shopkeeper is hiding. Yeah, secrets that the shopkeeper. Well, no. Yeah. Because the is referencing the shopkeeper, not secrets. So even though it's plural secrets, it still is. If it were shopkeepers, it would be are hiding. But because it's the shopkeeper is hiding. Okay, sorry, I was getting confused about plurality and tense there. Write down problems for details, otherwise rush through, not wanting to narrate the players too much whilst I film before. Yeah, absolutely. I'm very big on having lots of information, and the other thing that, like, is really nice about these templates, the way I do it, is they have built in with them a lot of redundancy. So it's really easy. Like, I'll see the same details in a lot of different places, and as long as they're the same, you know, you're not going to worry about getting confused about details, and it's going to help them be where I need them when I need them, and it's also going to help me sort of inherently remember them because I'm just getting that repetition of seeing it again and again and again. So yeah, I'm absolutely the same way. I love putting these details. My hope is always to be able to do it so that I don't have to have an original thought, you know, once while I'm DMing. I actually will oftentimes ignore what I've written down and just kind of narrate it live because I understand my world and I know my world well enough that I can do that, and it makes it easier to fit the mood of the table at the time and kind of keep things feeling a bit more organic. But my goal is always to make it so that I don't have to come up with a single thing and I can just read everything. So that way, if I have a night, because I DM once a week with my group, we play once a week and we do it on a Monday night. So there are many, many evenings where I sit there and my brain is just like dead after a long day. So if I can just read everything, then if I'm having a day where my brain is dead, doesn't matter. I'll still be able to present good information and be thorough with everything. Horseman, how's it going? It's good to see you. So yeah, I'm with you. The more information and the more redundancy, the better. So yeah, so we can just do all that kind of stuff here. The where for this one is going to be in a lot of ways more important for the dungeons because dungeons are going to have different rooms and everything like that. And so those are going to be laid out a little differently here. The dungeon's going to have a very different layout, but I'm on board with it. It'll be good. Let's see here. Shopkeeper's hiding. Yeah, that's good. The when is going to be pretty obvious. change that. Whoops, not when. Basically, just note if there are any periods when the shop isn't open, other than at night. Yeah, we'll say other than at night when the shopkeeper is sleeping, right? And so it's like you could also put in, obviously, like this is where we'll put in details to be like, this shop is only open at night, right? Or it's like this brothel is only open at night. Okay, well, that makes sense. You know, that's pretty straightforward. But you're right, that type of stuff there, just so it's, you know, it makes sense. Shop isn't open, and we'll actually just go ahead and say can be daily hours, can be if the shop appears mustache hairs are going crazy today. I don't know why, but they're all curling up into my nose and making my nose itch. They do that from time to time. Usually that means it's time to trim the mustache a little bit, but it's not gonna happen right now. That'd be weird. That'd be a weird thing to do on stream. I'm gonna say it. Although I don't know, like the number of things that you see, the wide variety of things that you see people like streaming or putting on TikTok or something like that, like good lord, there's an audience for everything. There's an audience for everything. It's insane. It's insane. And I'm not even gonna make fun of people for watching it, because I watch like super mundane things that people do. I love watching TikToks of people cleaning their kitchen or something like that. It's so satisfying. And I'm like, why? It's a chore. I'm watching someone do a chore. Why is this so fascinating to me? And it is. But it is, and according to the likes, you know, those videos will have like 200,000 likes. Apparently 200,000 people agree with me. It's like, good lord, that's like an entire state. What's going on? Why are we so enraptured with weird mundane things? So maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe I'll start a TikTok where it's just me like shaving. Do I clean along as I watch? I usually don't clean along, but I do get a lot of ideas. I will say I do get a lot of ideas, and my cleaning approaches have definitely been upgraded by some of the ideas that I find out on TikTok. It's fantastic. Like, for all the flack that TikTok takes, I will say it's actually been one of the most like actually helpful social medias of all of the social medias there are. Like, most everything, including TikTok for the most part, is just like a quick dopamine dump, right? It's like, it's just a way to get that instant satisfaction of like, fun, right? It's like, that's primarily what it is. But TikTok actually has a lot of useful things. Like, I've actually searched TikTok for how to do things, like how to fix, you know, a loose handle on a pot or something like that. You know, it's like people have made TikToks about that, and honestly, their algorithms for searching are good enough that it's as helpful, if not more helpful, than Google. It's ridiculous. It's really funny. Like, all the flack that it takes, it's actually one of the most beneficial. Because most of the other ones, because Twitter is just people yelling at each other, right? Like, that's all Twitter is. It's people yelling at each other, trying to one-up each other on their one-liners for being mean to each other. And Instagram is just people sharing pictures of stuff. It's like, it's Pinterest, but not Pinterest, you know? And so it's like, it's enjoyable. And I guess you can kind of get some ideas for, like, decorations and stuff like that. But Instagram is largely just sort of like an auxiliary, you know, to Google image search. And then there's Reddit, which is just more people yelling at each other. But Reddit is people yelling at each other and being wrong while they do it. So it's like, yeah, it's like surprisingly useful. I don't know, it's weird. Anyway, sorry, that was a bit of a tangent there. But I don't know, in defense of TikTok. Because then the other one is, hold on, just the one last point of it too is always like, people are always like, oh, well, they steal your data. It's like, do you really think Twitter isn't doing that? Do you really think Instagram or Reddit aren't stealing all of your data to sell to Google AdSense? Do you really think that's the case? Like, do you honest to God think that TikTok is worse than anyone else? Like, I'm not saying TikTok is good, but it's like, do you really think that you have any privacy online anymore at all, ever? Like, do you actually think that's the case? Because if you do, I've got news for you. You're wrong. Oh, boy. Anyway, okay, sorry. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. We have shop appears later or disappears throughout the campaign, right? So it's like the shop, if it shows up at like a later date, like if suddenly there's like, you know, a mysterious carnival shop that shows up or something along those lines, it'd be weird. Don't know, it's true. Algorithm in Western countries, TikTok is more girls dancing. More about studying. I mean, that wouldn't surprise me. But I don't think it. I think that's probably less to do with the algorithms and more to do with what people swipe and like. Because I think the algorithms are more so about presenting you information that you like, and that you focus on, and that you spend more seconds watching. And I think in Western countries, it's like, yeah, like, you know, you get dudes that see like pretty lady with cleavage. They'll sit there and watch that for longer, regardless of what the content is, because we're all chimpanzees. Right? It's like this. That's what happens. So it's like I like, it wouldn't surprise me, but I think that's a cultural trend, not a TikTok trend. I think TikTok doesn't give a rip, you know, what you prefer. It's just going to give you what gets you to view more often, because the longer you view a thing, the better it is for TikTok, because the more likely you are to spend time on TikTok, so they can spit more ads at you, and you'll sit there and you'll watch more ads, because that's what it all is. All the algorithm is to get you to spend more time on the app, and this is true of any app. It's to get you to spend time on the app so they can get you to look at more advertisements. The more time you spend on the app itself, the more ad revenue they can make off of you, right? That's what it all comes down to. So the trick is to provide content that someone will continue to watch for longer periods of time. And it'll, you know, so that way they can get you to look at more ads, because then they can get more ad revenue from the ad companies, is what it is. That's all it is. That's what it comes down to. So like, they don't care what you look at. It's not going to matter. It's just going to give you more of that thing. I'm gonna make a fresh TikTok right now without seeding it. Searches or external links, it is yeah, it takes some time. I had to do, when I first started TikTok, it was really funny when I first started using it. I had to do a little bit of cleaning, like a little bit of intentional programming, because I knew that's how the algorithm worked. I knew that's like the basics of the algorithm. I mean, I'm sure there's more complicated details that I don't fully understand, but as a baseline, I knew that's how it worked. And I made the mistake of letting myself get enraptured. One of the first videos that it had, I don't know why it spat it at me. I mean, there was a whole bunch of them. Like, I don't actually get a whole lot of. A lot of people will get like, you know, like videos of dogs and cats, and I don't get a whole lot of those, because I just kind of swipe past those. Those aren't super interesting to me. But I got a lot of those, and I had to swipe past them. And I made the mistake. Of being enraptured by and watching for too long a pimple popping video. So TikTok then spent like a good 2 days giving me like nothing but pimple pop videos. And I was like, no, God, stop. And so I had to retrain TikTok. And the way I got it out of there was I started doing, because then it started giving me occasionally like chiropractor ones, which like were more tolerable to me, like of people just getting good back cracks or good knuckle cracks or something like that. Because that was like similar. It was like tangential to zip popping. So it's like I made sure to quickly go past you can quickly go past all that kind of stuff. Yeah, they have that not interested thing, but I worry that doing that will like cut out other things that might be interesting. You know what I mean? So it's like it's easier to like train it, I find, because the thing is too is you can say not interested in that, but it's still going to give you tangential stuff, right? Which I really wouldn't have been interested in that stuff either. But basically what happened is it then led me to like the chiropractic stuff, which I was like, okay, we'll like this. We'll spend some more time on this. And then that led me to other like satisfying videos with like the satisfying tag, which then led to things like, it was really interesting. It then led to things like repairing machines and stuff like that, because those were qualified as like, you know, that's where like a lot of the cleaning type stuff came. So like watch repair videos came up, and those were legitimately cool. So I started spending intentionally a lot more time on those. So now my TikTok is good to go. It doesn't give me all kinds of crap that I'm not interested in. But yeah, I had to train it for a little while. It was really funny. And I was like, no, God damn it, I spent too many seconds on this one compared to everything else. So now it's like, oh, he likes that. And it just like kept spitting more at me. I'm like, no, stop. Give me different things. And I just kind of kept swiping past them. And so now it's much more in line with stuff that I actually find interesting. The only problem is now, like I've gone through, like I've used it long enough that I've kind of gone through the backlogs of all the stuff that I really like. So it spends more time experimenting with random stuff. So I have to swipe past more things like the stuff that I don't usually find interesting are when people are just like doing skits on TikTok. I don't find those interesting. Like, I don't care about people, you know, doing like a little sketch where they like one of them, like it's the same person having a conversation with themselves, but in one they're wearing a hat and the other one they're not, and it's like supposed to be a comedic sketch or something like that. Like I don't find that stuff interesting. I'm not gonna make fun of them and say it's dumb because like hey, to each their own, but I don't find that stuff interesting, and it keeps trying more stuff like that, so I keep having to swipe past all that stuff. I don't know. It's fascinating, and like. It's funny because like the inherent attitude a lot of people have is that it's kind of dystopian, and I get that, but I don't even find it particularly dystopian because all it is it's a sophisticated approach to what humans have always done. Humans have always tried to get each other's attention. Like that's all it is. That's all it is it's a sophisticated way to get our attention. The trick is to be a sophisticated consumer of that, so that way you can understand what is happening and not let it manipulate your personality or your behavior, right? That's the only trick behind it. And that's why I don't get too worked up about it, because it's like, I mean, like, yes, it annoys the piss out of me when it's like super obvious that someone is just trying to sell me something, right? I get really annoyed with that, and like movies are terrible about that. Like just like the way my brain works, I can tell from a mile away when there's ad placement and they're trying to advertise something to me. It's why I don't watch the news. The news is all it's trying to do. Like the news is meaningless now. The only thing the news tries to do is come up with the most remarkable headline possible to, again, get you to spend more time on their channel, so that way you watch more commercials that they present to you, right? They want you to spend more time on their webpage, so that way they can put more ads on the side banners. Right? That's all that news wants to do, which is why I just don't watch the news. You know, I kind of pay attention to the headlines just to sort of like get the gist of what's going on. It's like I'll see something about like Republicans slam Democrats over this, and it's like, okay, we're getting close to election season. I should probably pay attention to my candidates, and that's it. And so it's like, that's like, you know, you gotta be wise about how you do it. But the fact is whether it's a computer or a person, everyone's just trying to sell something, whether it's an idea, whether it's a product, whether it's an emotion, whatever it is, everyone's trying to sell something to everyone. And that's just what humans have always done. From the first time that a caveman had a banana and wanted that other caveman's spear and they tried to trade it, from like that was the first time that, like, from that moment on, humanity was doomed because all it became was a market. So now about a dude talking to me, wanted to get to know me, wanted to sell something a week ago for a charity thing. But yeah, I get the thing that I've kind of learned to just like not be kind. Like I'm still kind about it, but like the thing that I've learned to just like shut down immediately, I get because of how much I do streaming and stuff like that, and because I post like on Twitter and stuff like that, announcements about my streams and everything like that. I get a lot of graphic designers trying to sell their stuff to me. And it's like really annoying because they'll pop in. Sometimes you'll see them in chat. They'll pop in and they'll act all interested and they'll be like, "Oh wow, this is really cool. I really like what you're doing. Hey, can I message you on this thing?" And like as soon as they do that, I'm pretty much immediately like, "You can message me, but if you're gonna sell me something, I'm not buying." And they're immediately gone. They leave chat. They never message me again. And it's like a part of me feels bad because I get it. You know, you gotta. I appreciate the hustle. You gotta put yourself out there. Like you gotta get yourself out there. You gotta put yourself out there for that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it's like I'm not interested. If I were buying, I would go to your page. If I were in the market, I would go to your page. Just put your marketplace up there and find places to make yourself available. Don't try and hunt me down as an individual, because that's such a low reward approach. You know, you spend 10 minutes on my stream for one person, you might not do it. It's just poor advertising anyway. So going to the store, he's like, "Are you from this town?" Oh man, yeah, when they start doing that kind of stuff. That one's when it's in person, it can be really hard. It can be really hard to shut down a sales pitch when it's in person, because they'll get up in there and they'll be friendly, and it's like you don't want to be a dick to someone to their face. It's like the same effect as like when you see like a homeless person with a cardboard sign on the side of the road. It's like you know, they play on. And I don't mean this in a sense of like, oh, they're all sinister, blah, 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 blah. It's just like the way that works is it inherently plays on your emotions and your empathy. And you want to, like, your instinct as an empathetic human, as long as you're not just a complete and utter shitbag of a human, your empathy will immediately say like, oh man, maybe we should help them. Maybe we should do that, right? But it's not wrong to ignore them and to ignore their what they're selling and stuff like that. It's not wrong to do that, but it's hard when it's in person because it plays off those emotions. Yeah, like, I mean, it can be the best cause in the world. If you're not buying, it doesn't matter. And like that's it can be kind of hard. It can be hard to get past that. And I think a lot of that too is like I'm like totally down a tangent here, but you got me going on this topic, so I'm just going to go with it here. We're ignoring the writing for right now, but that's okay because this is a valuable topic to talk about and it's an interesting one too. Because like the hard part about it too is I feel like in a lot of ways the average citizen is guilted into believing that they are the cause of the problem if they're not actively being part of the solution, right? It's like, you know, it's like you hear all about that kind of stuff where people are like, you know, they encourage you to, as an individual, it's like, oh, you should take the bus more than you should drive, and that'll save the environment. And so then you feel guilt tripped as an individual. It's like, oh shoot, well there is a bus to work, maybe I should do the bus. But it's like the reality of the situation is that it is not an individual's responsibility in those situations, because usually, almost always, the source of the problem isn't the individual just trying to make it day by day, get their paycheck so they can make rent this month, right? It's not the person driving to work that's the source of the problem. It's the rich people who own the vehicle companies that get in the way of creating better public transit systems that are the problem. And so it's not wrong for you to say, I don't care that there is a bus. The bus takes 40 minutes when driving takes 15. I'm going to drive because I want to have my life available to me. That's not wrong. Like, that's not a wrong thing. What people need to do at that point in time is be willing to call out when there's a larger systemic problem, and they need to be part of the advocate for the systemic solution. You know, so it's like when it comes to charities and stuff like that, it's like, you know, when they're all like, oh, well, won't you donate $1 to cancer research? It's like, is my $1 actually going to make a difference? Or would that multi-billionaire giving $1 million, would that make a bigger difference? You know, it's like, who's actually the source of the problem? The people leveraging their money, giving it to like fake charities so that they remain in charge of the money, but they can say that they gave it to charities. Are they the problem? Or is it me when I'm like, I don't have $1 to spare today? You know, it's like when I walk by the Salvation Army Santa and I don't have pocket change, am I the problem? Or is the problem the fact that people get in the way of creating social systems that make it so that the government itself could provide care for people in need, as opposed to us having to pool what little resources we have as the not rich people, you know? And so it's like, the upshot, all I'm trying to say here is, I don't think anyone should ever feel guilty about choosing not to do an optional thing, no matter how beneficial and how good that thing would be. Like, yeah, it's good to do that. And it's like, it's not like that $1 to cancer research isn't going to be helpful in some way, shape, or form. So if you're of a mind to do it and you have the dollar and you're in a charitable mood, go for it. But you're not a bad person for not doing that, because ultimately it's not your fault that cancer exists, and it's not your fault that our system is set up in a way that it allows those with wealth to hoard it for themselves, as opposed to helping society at large. Like, it's not your fault. So, you know, I don't know. It's just a bit of a tangent, and I feel pretty strongly about that. Even as someone who pretty much always gives to those charities and all that kind of stuff, it's like, the fact is like, it's not my sole responsibility to fix society. The best that I can do as an American citizen is, you know, exercise my voting rights, which I have my mail-in ballot ready to go in the mail. I just, you know, next time I go for a drive that's going to take me by the mailbox, I'll drop that in there. That's what my responsibility is, to make sure that I'm advocating and doing what I can to set up a larger societal system to fix things. Because a good functioning society doesn't rely on charity to fix problems. They pool resources together and everyone chips in, you know, to a system that makes sure that those problems don't arise in the first place. So, I don't know. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I guess I can get off my soapbox here a little bit. But I don't know. It's stuff that I feel strongly about, and it's stuff that baffles me that people don't at least have thoughts on, let alone agree with. It's like, how can anyone disagree with the fact that, yeah, we should have a government that makes sure everyone pays their fair share, so that they can, you know, be putting into the society that they're benefiting from. Like, how is that a disagreeable idea? How are people, I never understand how people are against the idea of taxes. Like, how are you against the concept of pooling your money so that way the government can take care of the roads that you use, right? How are you against that? I don't understand it. I don't understand it. I can understand being against your taxes being used for things that you don't benefit from, right? Like breaks, like giving big giant bailouts to big companies that you're not a customer of, right? It's like that I agree with. Like, that's a horrible thing. But taxes, the problem isn't taxes. The problem is what the people in charge are using said taxes for. So what you should be doing is not voting for reduced taxes. You should be voting for people who are going to use those taxes in a better way, is what people need to do. But people are mostly okay with it. That's good. That's good. It's very regional in the United States. It's very regional. There are a lot of states. It's not even necessarily state by state. It can be city by city. The city I live in, there are a lot of city taxes because people in this city appreciate building up the city. So we have a lot of city taxes that go towards school repairs, road repairs, community construction projects, all that kind of stuff. But then you go to other places and they hate taxes, and then they get all pissed off because they're like, well, why is my town all kind of crappy and not getting stuff? It's like, well, because every time there's a school mill, you know, on the ballot, you say no because you don't want to give an extra 10 cents per paycheck to the city. You know, it's like that's all they're asking for, and people are like, no, I don't want to give taxes. And then they're like, why is my road full of potholes? It's like, well, dick brain, like there's an effect to you know, there's a result of your actions. Yeah, that's just it. People and a lot of it is like there are definitely people in power in the United States that have gone through great lengths to limit how well people understand what taxes are and how they work and how our government works. They want the people to not understand, so they keep voting to let them stay in power, and it's a problem. Yeah, exactly. It's like people, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of systemic issues there, and I try to do my best to not even necessarily blame the people against taxes because I recognize in a lot of ways it is very strong campaigns of misinformation that wealthy, powerful people have put in place to keep themselves as wealthy and powerful and in charge. So it's not even necessarily those people's fault, but it is important to continue to advocate for things like, you know, a good functioning tax system. But that also includes making sure our taxes are used for proper means, which is why I pay attention to it. And anytime there's a chance to vote on taxes, I don't just automatically say, like, yes, all the taxes. I pay attention to what it's for. If it's for a project that I think is stupid and I don't want us to waste our money on it, then I won't go for it. Right? It's all about being informed, and a lot of people choose to not be informed, and they just kind of look at, like, okay, well, I identify as Republicans. What do the Republicans say? And they don't actually pay attention to what's being said, because a lot of people end up voting against their own best interests, and it's a shame, but it's like I can't even say it's their fault, because they've been miseducated or poorly educated about this stuff. And it's like, well, shit, unless I'm willing to go door to door and have a conversation with those people, how can I, you know, talk shit on them? Because I don't know who's talking to them. I don't know who's getting to them and giving them misinformation. Not their fault. They've been told the wrong thing. They trusted someone in power, and that person in power manipulated them and used them. It's not their fault. I can't get pissed off at them. I mean, I can, but it's not helpful. It's not functional. But I don't know. I said I was going to get off the soapbox, and here I am still standing on it, at least like 1 foot balanced on it. I'm like, oh, yeah, am I getting off? Is it getting off? Anyway, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. The upshot here, moral of the story is, be an aware citizen, you know, and it all goes back to the ads and stuff too. It's like, just be an aware person, understand, you know, pay attention. Don't necessarily be hateful and cynical, but be aware of what people are trying to say, like what they're actually saying versus what they're trying to say. You know, if that makes any sense. Like, just be an aware individual. Recognize that people will always have an agenda, whether that agenda is good or bad. Everyone always has an agenda. I mean, I have an agenda sitting here saying that. My agenda is I'd like to see, you know, society improve. You know, that's what my agenda is. But even then, just because that's my agenda doesn't mean I know the best way, and doesn't mean that's going to be the same as yours. So it's, you know, just be an informed citizen. Be an informed citizen and vote for your own best interests. Don't vote as though it were some sort of team sport. Vote for your own best interests, and be charitable about that too. Like, if there's something that maybe isn't your best interest but will help other people who are less well off than you, be a kind person and help them. You know, it's like, if most people voted with that in mind, if they were to look at something and be like, this doesn't help me, but it will help other people without hurting me, I should vote for it. Like, if people did that kind of stuff, society would trend better, because people have the tendency to be like, this won't affect me, therefore I don't like it, even though it will help other people. And so they just kind of do that, and that's what the problem is. It's like, don't just say no to things that don't benefit you. Say no to things that hurt other people. Like, that's what you should be saying no to. Anything else, whether it helps you or helps someone else, you should vote yes for. And that's like the best way to be a good citizen. So, I don't know. Voted for power for a decade. I think this was worse than everything. Yeah, exactly, because people are misinformed. They don't understand. They've been fed poor information, so they don't understand the implications of what they're doing. It's like I say, I can't hardly say it's their fault. I mean, to a certain degree, ignorance is the fault of the ignorant, right? Because if they're not willing to go out there and find better information. But like, hell, what do you do? What do you do if you go to school and the school has been structured in such a way that they teach you poor things, right? There are schools that don't acknowledge the Holocaust. It's like that. Those exist in the world. It's not even just in America. In the world, those exist. It's like, what the hell are you supposed to do if you're a kid and you just have to go to the one elementary school in town and that's what they tell you? Like, how are you supposed to learn anything else? It's not their fault. And that's why it's the responsibility for those of us to recognize, like, hey, that's a harmful narrative to spread. So even though it's in a school district that doesn't impact me, I should vote against that. I should make sure that we're voting for policies at a nationwide level that will go against that. You know, that's what people need to pay attention to. But I don't know. Good Lord, I keep saying I'm going to get off the soapbox, and I can't do it. I can't do it. I don't ever mean for my stream to be a political thing. I don't know. I try to not be afraid to talk about my beliefs when the situation arises, because I think those discussions are an important part of it too, even if people disagree with me. My hope is always that even if someone disagrees with me, they'll at least listen to what I say and think like, okay, well, this guy largely seems sane, so maybe there's a reason he's saying what he's saying. And maybe there's some parts of it that I can adjust my mindset to, because there's plenty of things that I've adjusted my mind to that I'm less liberal than most of the people in my peer groups about. Like, you know, like I tend to be much more on the side of find a balance between capitalism and socialism rather than wanting to go like pure socialism. As much as I love it, there are certain things that are that function better as a capitalist approach as opposed to a socialist approach, rather than blanket all things should be one way. You know, and so that tends to make me a little less, you know, a little less left of center than a lot of the people I associate with. And it's just because it's like, I don't know, it just kind of makes sense to me that some things would need to be handled in a, you know, in a capitalist approach. But I don't know. I'm gonna actually genuinely try to get off the soapbox here. Who, what, where, when, why? Why is the last thing we need. This one is gonna be largely irrelevant for a shop here. I'm gonna change this to why. I don't even know if there is necessarily a reason, because why just kind of becomes the history of it. It's more so just like, I'm just gonna put not very important. Just put a little blurb about why the shop is here and how that shop benefits the town. We'll also put, like, maybe I can just say something along the lines of, this is a good place to mention whether people in town appreciate this business or not, so that if any shenanigans arise, what the possible results are. Oh, there we go. I mean, that's really all we need there. And then how is kind of irrelevant, right? Because like the how is, like I say, the how is always what the players do. Like players in D&D, they get to determine the how. Everything else is more so like a descriptive, because it's like, I guess the best way to think about it, at least how I think about it, is who, what, where, when, why. Those are descriptive. How is like action based, right? Like you can kind of describe how something happened, but like how is like, how did it come to be? How did that transpire, right? That's like an action based concept. Like who is there? There's no action involved. It's just who is there. It's a descriptive thing. What is kind of action based, because it's kind of like what happened or what can happen, but even then it's like descriptive because it's talking about either past or future, right? It's not talking about what is happening. So it's like kind of action, but it's more so descriptive about what the possibilities are or what happened, right? So who, what, where, describing where things happen. It's descriptive. Where, when, when did it happen? There's no action involved there. There's no active, choice about the time. It's just when did things happen? Describe when it happened. Why is also kind of like, that one can kind of get a little action based, but it's more so like, what were their motivations? There's no action involved there. It's just how did people feel? How did that come to be? Or why did that come to be? And the how, though, is like what transpired. Those are the actions. And so since we're talking about a collective game where players will take actions, right, they're the ones that kind of get to dictate that. They get to dictate the how. So we don't put that in there. The only how that I'll put in there is, again, historically, how did that happen? But that's kind of back to the what, like what happened or what could have happened and all that kind of stuff there. So at any rate, I feel like this is really all we need. There's not a whole lot that needs to change about this whole situation. We're just kind of adding a bit more description there to make the shop a bit more fleshed out, a bit more realistic. Yeah, I think that's really all we need to put for that one. Then the last one is the dungeon. I don't know if we'll even finish this today. I kind of want to just ponder this a little bit, because I think the challenge with the dungeon is I like all the information that I have here. I almost feel like I just want to rearrange it maybe a little bit or reorganize it a bit so it's a bit more clear with the who, what, where, when, why, how. Because I think everything is largely encompassed in here. So let's talk about our who. We have our who, right? We have our villains and our allies that we've broken down here. So we have all of the who. I might need to be a bit better about how I organize that just to make it a bit more clear. Like this, I feel like I want to kind of reorganize this a little bit. Just because the way it's set up there just doesn't end up being all that functional all the time. But we've got the who. The what, in terms of what can happen. That's all of these room descriptions, right? Marking, putting down all of these different types of rooms and stuff like that. That's the what. What can players do? What are the problems? Like, what problem is presented here? And, like, what are the players attempting to accomplish? All that kind of stuff. That's all already there. The where, I mean, that's just kind of in and of itself. We've kind of got that up here when we talk about, we can talk about a few different aspects of it, like where in the world is that? Well, that's just kind of inherent in following our hierarchy here. Or where is there to go? Again, when we describe the rooms and provide a map, that's kind of there. So who, what, where, when. When is kind of the only one that might be a little different, but we kind of still have that there with our primary tasks. I might just reorganize that a little bit to be a bit more detailed about like main plot points versus side plot points and stuff. So when, and then the why, the motivations, that's kind of like our history here and our thematic elements and stuff right there. When we're talking about our villains, we give them the why are they concerned about this or why are they here. We kind of already have that. And then the how is just what the players do when they're in the dungeon. So I think this layout has most of the things that I need. I think I just want to reorganize it a little bit. I feel like the way I've been operating kind of encompasses everything, but I guess really what it is, what's leading me to think that I want to reorganize is when I'm running a game, right, for my players, I do notice myself having to jump around a lot. I notice myself having to jump around a lot. And it's frustrating when I have to do that. Like, I feel like I can be a bit more thorough in how I lay things out. But I feel like this one I actually need to ponder a little bit more and think about how I want to do that. And then actually what I might do is, we play on Mondays. So what I might do is shelve the adjustment of this, keep working with the system that I have right now, just for the time being. And on Monday, I might take notes while I'm running a session and take notes about like, okay, what do I wish I had had in this location or that location at any given time, right? Maybe I'll make a copy of the notes that I'm using, so that way I can just like take notes in there and like do, I wish this were here, I wanted to put this there, and I can just like cut and paste things and move things into a place that makes more sense for when I'm actually functionally doing it. I feel like that would be helpful. I think maybe I'm going to do that, and I think I'm going to not worry about it today, and I think that's actually good because I'm looking at the time. And I mean, I could sit here and try and do stuff for 10 minutes, but I'm going to be honest, I don't think I'll get much done. I think I wasted too much of the end of stream ranting about politics and stuff, so my apologies for that. But I think we still got a lot done. We got a couple templates all made up, and I feel good about these templates, and I actually feel really excited to kind of do some more writing forward. I don't know that I'm going to go back and change up the stuff that I've already written, at least not right now. I think I'm going to just move forward with it so that way we can do practice, and like with the new stuff, we can practice these new templates and this new organizational system. And we'll just kind of do all that moving forward, and we'll just see how that works, and we can make changes as we need. But I think for today, I'm gonna actually call that a writing session. Let me bring us over to chatting. So we're gonna call that a writing session today. What's gonna happen is I'm gonna take an hour-long break, just kind of rest my voice a little bit, take care of a couple things, a couple of those emails that came in for work. I might go respond to those and just take care of those. And then I'm gonna be back in probably about an hour. I'll come back and we're gonna play some more Stray today. We started Stray. We started Cat Simulator, and I had a lot of fun with that. And Leela, my kitty, she actually had a lot of fun with that too. She might come and watch with us. She was enraptured by the cats on the screen, so she may come and join us. But that's what's going to happen. We're going to do that in about an hour, and that's how we're going to finish off this week of streaming. It is Friday, which means there won't be streaming tomorrow or the rest of the weekend. It's when I come back, that'll be the last stream of the week. My usual stream schedule is Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and I try to stream 9 a.m. to noon. This is Eastern time zone. 9 a.m. to noon, we do some D&D writing like we're doing here. And then from usually around 1 to 4 is when I like to do some video gaming. So I try to do that. I try to stick with that. I can say right now I definitely won't be here Monday morning. And there's a very good chance that I won't be here Monday at all. Because I do have a couple appointments scheduled for Monday morning. And it's looking like I may have a meeting that gets scheduled for Monday afternoon. We'll see. We'll see how that pans out. But other than that, next week we should be back at our usual time. So we should be around Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday next week. And I'll make sure and put announcements about that. If you want to get announcements about when I'm going live, because it's too hard to remember what my schedule is, because I can barely remember my schedule, you can always follow on Twitter or on Twitch here and get those notifications. Or you can follow me. You can join my Discord server, or you can follow me on Twitter. I put announcements about when I'm going live and all that kind of stuff on those locations as well. So yeah, that's what I got. So thank you for hanging out with me. I appreciate it. Fun conversations, even if they were a little off topic from time to time. I really enjoy streaming. It's those conversations that I really like. I mean, you don't get that when you're just sitting there quietly writing on your own. And so I have a lot of fun with that. So thank you for joining me. Hopefully I will see you later this afternoon. Oh, Crisanti, you're joining at just the wrong time. I'm about to take a break, but I will be back this afternoon in about an hour. I'm taking my break, but then in about an hour, we're going to come back and we're going to play some Stray. So hopefully I will, like I say, I will be back. We'll be back in a little bit. In about an hour, we're going to play some Stray. So hopefully I'll see you then. If not, have an awesome weekend, everyone. And yeah, we'll whenever I see you next, I'm excited about it. And yeah, take care of yourselves. I'll catch you cats on the flip side.